Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and I want to talk to you today about mechanics that we should bring into Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, specifically through the new, what is it again? Yeah, specifically through the new 2024 core rulebook, right? So we have this opportunity where we can introduce very significant changes into Dungeons & Dragons through 5th edition right now as they gather information through the Unearthed Arcanas and, essentially the playtest. And actually, one thing that's really interesting is you know what? Let me stay focused. I want to talk today about bringing in mechanics from Magic the Gathering directly into Dungeons & Dragons based on the continued tying of Dungeons & Dragons into between Dungeons & Dragons and Magic the Gathering, right? So the new Magic the Gathering, Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth, continues to expand Dungeons & Dragons lore, and in my humble opinion, expands Dungeons & Dragons lore into Lord of the Rings. This is really fascinating. Lord of the Rings has actually changed in my opinion, I don't think a token estate understands this at all. I don't think a token estate is even aware of what they've done. But by connecting their product officially to Dungeons & Dragons, they've actually changed the lore of Tolkien's work, right? And so the biggest way they did this was, hobbits, right? That's what Tolkien called them, right? And until this Magic the Gathering is canon connected to Dungeons & Dragons. Until Lord of the Rings officially connected itself to Dungeons & Dragons by making a setting within Magic the Gathering which is canon to Dungeons & Dragons. Magic the Gathering is canon to Dungeons & Dragons, right? And now Lord of the Rings is a Magic the Gathering set, right? So basically the Tolkien estate signed off on this set, right? And it shows canon depictions of Lord of the Rings, right? And Bilbo, Frodo, all the canon characters are there, and Tom Bombadil, even more canon than the movie. This set is more canon than the film. It's really incredible, right? So what's really amazing is when they went to define this Magic the Gathering set, they had a creature type for Frodo and Bilbo and all that. They had this, they had a setting they had a name that they applied for the hobbits. They did not call them hobbits. I don't think you'll find the word, I'm not sure the word hobbit is anywhere near the rules. Nowhere near the rules. You might find the word hobbit in the flavor text, but the mechanical depiction of the hobbits is halfling. That is the Dungeons & Dragons species. They could have called these creatures hobbits on the cards, but the reason they didn't is because Dungeons & Dragons is canon to Magic. So the moment they called them halflings, it makes all of these much more accessible to any dungeon master to mix these into an existing Dungeons & Dragons, to mix these into a Dungeons & Dragons core setting, right? Really, really interesting and fascinating depiction of how these actually are. So they used the Dungeons & Dragons species, not actually the reference within the game. That is truly astounding, right? So you have so they actually connected it. And so as I was playing Magic the Gathering, Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth player, as I was playing in the tournament, right, in the pre-release tournament, and getting Dungeons & Dragons components for myself, that I'll be using in my Dungeons & Dragons game, because the species have been conveniently labeled exactly what I need for Dungeons & Dragons, right? I need halflings in my game, right? Hobbits aren't there yet, but halflings sure are, right? And so I was really excited. So I'm playing it, and what's really fascinating is the Nazgul come up, and they have Death Touch, right? And what's interesting about Death Touch in Magic the Gathering is it cuts. So Magic the Gathering, all the creatures are, hey, it has toughness 3, it has toughness 5, right? And then you do this combat and you say, okay, is the power higher than the toughness? And if it is, it dies. Unless the creature has Death Touch, right? If it has Death Touch, it doesn't matter. If the creature, if it does 1 point of Death Touch damage, it's finished, right? Like, and it doesn't matter if the receiving creature has toughness 7 or toughness 12. It just dies. Death Touch. This is elegant and smooth and absolutely belongs in Dungeons & Dragons. We should immediately bring Death Touch over, where it says, hey, either through a feat or a weapon's abilities, a person gets Death Touch. You could put Death Touch on a weapon, or you could say this player character has the ability to do Death Touch, and then at that point, Death Touch would simply kill any creature that it touches, and it doesn't matter if it does 1 hit points worth of damage, or 200 hit points of damage, or 700 hit points of damage. It's dead. Period. End of sentence. Smooth as glass. Would massively speed up Dungeons & Dragons combat and make it much more dangerous and deadly. I think we should absolutely bring Death Touch over into Dungeons & Dragons from Magic the Gathering, canon connected to Dungeons & Dragons. Let's bring the mechanic over in the 2024 core rules. I think that would be a really good, really effective change in Dungeons & Dragons, and I would love to see it there. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.